back to another edition of Hoosier Chronics Cocktail Hour. Today we're joined with some very esteemed guests. Here with us we have the three-man weave, the IDS Kids, Connor O'Gara, Kevin Bowen, Avi
Zalen.
Yeah. I always want to put an E on it.
Trust me, nobody gets it right.
Indiana phonetics, man. Nevertheless. Happy to have you guys here tonight. As always, I'm your host, Chronic Hoosier. Allow me to introduce myself. That is the Imperial pint glass. Probably shouldn't pour this over my computer.
Steady hands. All glass.
Let's begin. So guys, tell me a little bit about yourself for those who aren't familiar with some of your work on the IDS or your past experiences. Connor, let's start with you, man. Where are you from? What year are you? How did you end up with the IDS? All that good stuff.
From Buffalo Grove, Illinois, suburb of Chicago. It's, basically came to IU to do the whole sports journalism thing. Been doing this IDS thing since freshman year, kind of just hit the ground running right away. And, ultimate goal obviously was to do basketball, and here I am now doing it. So, living a dream, baby. Living a dream.
Carmel, Indiana for me, but Cathedral High School.
The pride of Carmel, Indiana.
In Indianapolis. I started off men's and women's golf with the IDS sophomore year, and then I did baseball, and I was a Hoosier sports columnist last semester, junior year. And then, like Connor said, I was just kind of working towards being basketball, and basketball right now, and we'll see where the future holds.
You did a great job with baseball.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I
love Tracy Smith.
One of the best programs at IU to cover.
By far, I think it's the best beat the IDS. I think both these guys would agree.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm from, my name is Avi Zalen. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I guess as far as the IDS goes, I started with the IU track and field team beat. Coach Helmer was really the best coach I've ever covered. He's doing really cool things over there with that group. And I guess that's it for that.
So you guys all came in Tom Crean's first year here at IU. What was that like for you guys coming in? I mean, on the heels of the Kelvin Sampson debacle, Crean comes in and there's all this uncertainty and everything else, and here you guys are aspiring journalists.
Right.
I mean, how does that play out from your perspective?
I mean, I remember thinking, like, freshman year, we were probably all a little bit naive at the whole situation. And maybe, we didn't really realize how bad it was. We both obviously, we'd also kind of seen IU basketball and seen where it had come from, where it had been, even just the year before. But to come into this situation where, I mean, they were one of the worst Division I programs there was. And, we didn't realize the fact that when you have 6 scholarship guys on your roster or whatever it was, that's
Belmont, that was the loss.
Yeah.
Belmont,
whatever that was.
Good
I
times.
mean, that's miles below where IU basketball is used to being. And I remember going into certain games thinking that they had a chance to get like at Wake Forest or, against Gonzaga. And you go into these games and then you just get on the floor, you realize that this team is just horrendous and that, these guys have, these guys have they have nothing. You have Mike Santa out there, the manager, and you realize kind of how low this team can get. And from our standpoint, we were just kind of eternal optimists, I thought, as freshmen, and not really understanding how bad this was and really how far this program had fallen in such a quick period of time.
Yeah, I mean, for me it was a shock. I mean, growing up in the state, I'm not used to IU being the laughingstock of the Big Ten, and pretty much that's what they were for my first two years. But yeah, I mean, seeing Kyle Tabor and Finkelmeyer, I mean, 32 combined points they were bringing back
On the season.
Right, on the season. And I had grown up watching Eric Gordon, Armand Bassett, and I've obviously heard of Crawford and DJ White, everyone else, and then to see them hit rock bottom really. And I mean, like these guys mentioned, losing games to Loyola Maryland and Northeast or Lipscomb.
Lipscomb after a 20-point lead.
Right.
Whereas
I mean, it was just like, what is happening? I mean, how is this IU basketball? And at the same time, then going into the next year, you lose Nick Williams, Malik Story, the two guys who you kind of looked at to be, okay, these guys can maybe be something. which it's like, are you starting over again? But then obviously Tom brought in a great class in '09. But yeah, it was just a shock for me. I mean, this is not what I was used to from IU. I was still young in the night days. I didn't really, grasp all of it. But watching them go to the Final Four in '02 and seeing that, and seeing Sampson bringing in some great talent. And if that team didn't have the sanctions, who knows what that '07 team could have done.
Too hot.
Or I guess '07, '08. With Gordon and Bassett and Crawford and Ellis and all them. They could have done something. So
Even like the Ebankses and guys like
right.
that.
I mean, he
Holloway.
was then bringing in Holloway, and if Bud Mackey doesn't find whatever he found in his high school drug.
Crack cocaine.
Exactly. No, I mean, it looked like he was bringing in something special. So yeah, I mean, to me it was just a shock, and then it was almost like you were starting over from scratch, literally. And the Kevin Stallings and Tony Bennett saying no, and this and that. It's like you kind of wonder, was Crean their guy? Did they want him? And me being a Notre Dame fan, I had watched Crean, what he done in the Big East, and for me it was like, is he all Dwayne Wade? How good is he away from Wade? And obviously this year he's starting to show that it is something more than just Wade.
Crean pretty much got me hook, line, and sinker. I remember there was a time where I plugged my phone or whatever device it was, computer or whatever, into my car's audio system and listened to the It's Indiana speech on my drive on the way to school. And it was just, he had me like hook, line, and sinker. And it was because partially I'm from Maryland and I grew up in like ACC country. And basketball was just everything, man. I loved that sport so much. And it wasn't just, I guess, basketball in general, but it was college basketball. I grew up in a UNC family, and just the UNC Duke game every year was like a holiday in my house, and it was just nuts. And Indiana basketball, I'll be honest with you, up till probably my later years in high school, I didn't know a whole lot of it other than 2002 when Indiana played Maryland, in the national championship
Let me
game.
put you on the spot. Who were you cheering for that game?
God,
Maryland.
No,
100%.
it wasn't Maryland.
No, I'm saying I was cheering for Maryland.
Oh.
Huge Steve Blake, Juan Dixon, Wilcox, all those guys.
You were
Huge
Maryland.
fan.
I was not Maryland. I hated Maryland. I always thought Gary Williams was just such a disgruntled old man. I don't know, but whose face turned 8 different colors throughout the course of a game. And as a recruiter, who wants to?
He was sweating by the under 16 timeout the first time.
That's great. But it was just, I don't know, Indiana basketball to me was kind of just something of the past where I was like, okay, I know they used to be really, really good, but I'm not going to school because of the basketball program. And I think that's a really interesting thing about our freshman class is that we didn't go to Indiana because they had a good basketball program, because we knew they weren't going to be good. And you can look at me and you can say, well, who chooses, college based on how good your athletics are?
I think people did that.
I agree.
I honestly
You're right.
think people did that.
It's definitely a pros and cons thing. I
Yeah.
mean, if IU basketball is where it is, I mean, obviously football is.
God knows we don't have football.
Football's. I think
What do
it's.
you mean? That's a recruiting magnet for
I think it's
scholastics
12.
here.
I think tailgating gets more.
I think it's
Yeah.
12 wins in our 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. 3 of those are Division I AA.
And you rarely are.
I did the math, and 3 more are Sun Belt. I mean, it's like obviously football's not the thing, so basketball
God.
is the thing.
Don't sleep on South Carolina State.
But we were at the time, I will point out, we were at the time the largest freshman class IU had ever had.
Yeah.
It was like 7,500 kids or something.
Oh, I remember the first the freshman whatever that they have at
Orientation.
Assembly Hall where.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the orientation.
Tradition and spirit.
Yeah, where you
Fresh off the Insight Bowl.
Oh,
Coach Flynn.
jeez.
And I will say this right now, like,
That was the high point of the last 20 years. I don't know where you guys are bagging on.
well, no, here's the thing: is that the guys who were the freshman year before us, so Greg and Nathan and like those guys, like to talk about, oh God, our 4-year stretch at IU was so bad. You had Eric Gordon for a year.
Yeah.
You had bowl game for a year.
This senior year has been better. If you're gonna ask
Yeah.
kids that are not, if you're gonna ask fans, beating Kentucky, beating Ohio State, beating
Right.
Purdue, I guess
Right.
it hadn't happened until this year. This year, I think so far, this year has definitely been
Duh.
better than what they had to endure
Yeah.
late in their senior year, late in their freshman year.
Yeah.
That 3-year stretch though was just.
No, it was brutal. I mean, it was 6, 9, and then 12.
The
I mean,
worst
we
the
could even go
program's
into
ever
IU
seen.
soccer here too, which you know all about. And You know, even IU soccer was struggling, which never happens. And you know, to go through kind of the period that we did with athletics, you know, we were. I mean,
It was comical. It almost
Yeah.
became like, oh, IU sucks. I mean,
yeah, like you kind of read something about IU historically every now and then and see like. You know, hey, you get the occasional reminder of they're this in the national championship total compared to other schools, and you're like, really?
We weren't alive for that.
Really?
there was, yeah.
You know, I didn't see 87. I mean, my biggest memory of IU was watching that game, 2002 against Illinois, the Sunday afternoon game that IU won by 30 and hit like a bunch of threes. I remember that was in my awkward stage of childhood where I was cheering for Illinois. I was cheering for a Bill Self team. I apologize. And I remember just thinking, how lucky is this team? How random is this? Bob Knight's not here anymore. Like, what does this program even have to work for?
I will kid you not, my first IU game that I watched from beginning to end and actually cared, it was IU versus Illinois in 2007, where it was in Champaign.
Oh,
Eric
yeah.
Gordon was silent throughout the
The
entire
bank.
game, and then
The
he
bank
hits
three.
and from
mean,
freaking
Chester Frazier
Roth
had
range, he hits a bank, and he forces it to overtime. Correct?
From left wing,
Yeah, and then that was the game where they gave him the bump at half
Chester
court.
Frazier.
Chester Frazier.
At
And
introduction.
they were throwing, stuff as parents the entire game or what? Wasn't that it?
My
And
brother was there, and now he's probably getting.
and I remember it went into overtime, and I was just jumping up and down, and it was like, this is awesome. I get to be a part of this, and I was like, ugh, I don't.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I'll say this much: having lived through this whole span, even had that 07-08 team gone undefeated up until Sampson's ouster, the fallout from that,
Still wasn't your normal IU.
nothing could have been worse. I think personally, the most frustrating thing about that was we knew in the week of Midnight Madness that we knew actually they announced the week of Midnight Madness. They made public that there had been some recruiting violations, some issues had come up over the summer. Well, prior they discovered it over the summer.
Is that IU or the NCAA talk?
That was IU,
Okay.
and they'd had the whole summer to work on it, and then the NCAA began their investigation like the very start of the practice season. And then as the season wore on, the NCAA built its case, and then they went out there for I think they have a hearing first, whatever. Nevertheless, the NCAA came to the conclusion, what was it, mid-February, that yeah, you lied to us, this is intentional deceit, blah, blah, blah. And then IU pulled the rug out from underneath them. And, my
That's
issue
the best way to
was,
put it too.
and they totally did, because
Yeah.
they knew all along we have a problem. Now, whether you believe the veracity of Sampson's statements that, I never looked at my phone, or, we weren't intentionally doing this three-way stuff or whatever, they knew he was in violation of his probation, unequivocally. They made the decision because we had such a great opportunity to let it ride and see where it fell. And it was only after they realized they made a bad bet did they try to pull their chips off the table. And they crapped out at it, and it was frustrating. I wish they would have at least let that team fight through it for the players, if nothing else for the players, because from a personal standpoint, watching the way that those guys responded, I totally believe they could have gone and made a Final Four run that year. It was us against the world, the way that they rolled out there as the heat really started to intensify on Sampson. I think at Purdue, Michigan State, just some of the best basketball they'd played all year. And then after he left, the team they lost their heart.
First IU game I actually ever went to, which is pretty shocking. See, now I've grown up in this state for 22 years now, was the Wisconsin game when Brian Bush banks in the three to beat IU.
That was on Big Ten Network
at
a
the
couple weeks ago.
buzzer, and that was right in the middle of it all.
They had
That was even the questioning of, is this his last game?
Yep.
I remember walking out of Assembly Hall thinking, did I just witness his last game? But no, I mean, you're exactly right. The talent, Jamarcus Ellis being the National Junior College Player of the Year, and
Lance
me growing up in Indianapolis and watching Eric Gordon in high school. I mean, he's obviously he speaks for himself what he's done in the league and stuff like that. And DJ White and everybody, that team easily, and I shouldn't say easily, but could have made that Final Four run. I don't think anybody expected them to lose to was it Arkansas in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean,
First
I don't
round, under Dockage.
Right. And you know
What
that whole
What an
mess
awful
when
position he was in.
you know Ellis goes nuts on Dockich and Holman and all that. I think is just I mean it was just it wasn't what I was used to. Probably definitely not what you were used to, and not what I expected to walk into my freshman year. 6 wins and 1 Big Ten win, and it was a shock. But then at the same time, if you would have told me by my senior year they'd be
Right.
knocking off the number 1 and 2 teams,
Right.
at that, during my freshman year, if you told me that, I would have laughed in your face.
Yeah.
And to do it, and kind of how they did it, even the second time around, not having your students there against Ohio State, not
Right.
having Sheehy, who's a big part of this team. I think that, obviously they got Solinger in foul trouble, Buford in foul trouble, etc. But to win both those games, I think just showed a lot. And obviously still they need to prove themselves away from home, but Purdue's definitely a step in the right direction. But I said at the start of the year, NCAA tournament was my expectation. But when I meant NCAA tournament, I meant 8 to 10 seed, not
Kind of where Purdue, Illinois is at
right.
now.
Not talking about 4 to 6 and people saying we want to go to Louisville, we want to go to Nashville.
To be fair, we're saying this.
Right,
saying this.
exactly.
Seattle.
Right. It's like
Seattle.
it's like people are arguing where IU goes,
Right.
and if you want to flash back to October,
It
you just
doesn't-
said let's just go anywhere.
It doesn't
Right.
make any sense. It makes 0 sense to me. What changed?
Um,
What changed? I mean, Cody Zeller, obviously, right?
That's
But come on, it's everybody though. It's everybody.
I think it's Zeller
It's
rubbing off.
one guy can make that big of a difference.
But
He
I
really
mean, he's
can.
not. You think he's the catalyst for the biggest turnaround in the
No, I mean, I'm
in
not.
the NCAA this year?
I'm not gonna say that. I think everybody's gotten better, which should happen. There should be natural progression of Sheehy and Victor
But
being
one
top.
year day.
But I think there's a point there because that's something we haven't seen so far under Crean.
Right.
All
I mean,
of a
it's
sudden,
night and
there's
day.
there's
It's nuts.
player development at multiple spots.
But I think part of it is Victor and Will here too.
Mhm.
I mean, he
Right.
always
Yeah.
says Victor is in the gym every day of the week. And I remember asking Victor after the Purdue game, I go, how'd it feel to finally hit that 3? And he kind of looked at me like he kind of laughed, and then he goes, "You guys don't see it." And I know he's kind of building himself up a little bit. He's like, "I'm in the gym every day."
Mhm.
And you kind of tell he was like, "You know what? Screw you guys. I'm pissed off. You guys don't see it, but I'm in there every day working hard. And I know that I'm not the best shooter on this team. I'm never going to be the best shooter on this team. But for me to see significant minutes, especially late in the game, he has to make sure he's what he was in the non-conference, which was
When they're on, they're really for Sheila Diba. When they're on, they're
Right.
on. But when they're off,
But to get back to it, I think a lot of it is Cody. I mean, it's not. I mean, I know it's what all we hear, and it seems like it's nonstop. And for this part of the state of Indiana, it seems probably at the times over the top how much Cody gets his praise. But it is him.
It's
I
true.
mean, it's just he attracts a double. You kick it out, and these are Division I Big Ten basketball players. At this point, Tom has gotten Big Ten basketball players. This is not the days of, like he said, Mike Santa, Evan White, Kip Schutz.
Mike Santa.
It's not
Oh,
those
Kip
days. It's
I would have loved to seen his trick shots after practice though.
pride of the Baltimore
Those are
Orioles
great.
organization.
Those are great. That was a great video. But it's just guys getting open shots, and at the standpoint they're knocking down. They feel more confident, and how much fans and just media and everybody take for granted a big man that can run the floor and finish at the rim.
It's really
And
simple.
he just finishes. I mean, he finishes.
Yeah,
And
better than anybody.
I know it sounds easy, but there's just not many big guys in college basketball that can do it on a consistent basis. And that spin move he has on the baseline probably is every time he touches the ball at the games, it's like the fans rise, and not like the Tom Pritchard rise. It's the rise like Cody. We love you. We know you can do something with the ball, so do it.
And we talk about this in baseball too. When you add one guy into a lineup, things kind of fall into place, and guys start realizing their roles, and guys start, there was a perfect example last night where Zeller got double teamed on the baseline. I don't remember who exactly it was by, but like he kind of dribbled out of it, and then Watford's wide open for a 3.
Yeah.
Watford hadn't hit a 3 all night,
No,
and Watford just perfect, wide open, in rhythm shot, knocks it down. That gets him going.
A guy who had been struggling.
Yeah, the guy
0 of 7 the last
big
game.
time. 0 of 7 last game. Hadn't hit a 3 in 2 weeks since Wisconsin, and he just gets going because of that. And that's the Zeller factor. And they've never had anything like that before. They've never had a guy on the low post that just dictates so much attention and so much of the game plan where other guys are really able to do what they're supposed to do. And you see guys really develop into these roles and develop, not necessarily trying to be the star, trying to be the main scorer. And guys are taking in rhythm shots. And I think that's kind of an overlooked thing with this team is that, guys like Watford and Holes aren't necessarily looked at to be like the scorers on a night in, night out basis. And that's because of Cody. And without Cody, I don't know if this team is sniffing the NCAA tournament right now. Yes, these guys have improved, but man, this guy is so responsible for a lot of what they've been able to do. And it'll be interesting to see the way that this team continues to develop with him, especially if he stays the way that we all think he will for the next couple of years.
Personally, I don't think either of you guys are giving Kyle Tabor enough credit. The man was a monster in the post.
You brought up the GPA, that was about it.
Brought up the GP. This is the only stat.
I mean, that's probably what Samson liked about him.
No, I mean he hustled and.
You don't need to talk about Kyle
For
Tabor.
what Kyle Tabor was.
No, I
he
mean,
was
hey, our freshman year, he started.
Am I going to be the one to bring up the first T-John reference?
I was about ready to bring it up, so
Well,
there it is.
Sorry about that.
That's what you're missing. The whole Cody narrative is he's wearing T-John's number.
Oh yeah, I mean,
we knew he was going to be
reason.
good.
Live
but-
vicariously through him.
Yes.
Right.
That's what he's trying to do.
Right. They should be hanging up in the rafters.
Cody Zeller wears T-John Job underwear.
Pajamas.
Pajamas, right.
Yeah,
No questions.
everybody wears T-John pajamas.
I can't afford him.
Short of Cody, what do you think's been the most intriguing storyline for each of you guys this season?
I'll go with the sophomore class.
Yep.
I mean, I know we just talked about it, but
These were two guys that were people questioning them. I think both coming in. First it was David Williams, and now I think everybody's he's at UNC Greensboro, wherever he is. But then those two guys from winning high school programs, DeMatha for Victor, and then she playing with Fab Mello down in Florida. But from that standpoint, their development has just been. I guess for us, it's kind of we took for granted their development,
Right.
Because we see some guys in the program that haven't developed, but then you see Victor start to find that jumper, and now he's handling the point a little bit. And at times he has struggled with it.
He's
but
very.
the fact that I saw the stat earlier today how his ability to get to the line in the past couple games has just
man.
been drastic.
12 foul shots last year.
It was, yeah. I mean, that's what his role needs to be. And then Sheehy, I mean, he's not afraid to take any shot, which at times it can kind of get IU in some trouble. But he hits. I mean, he can hit that three, and he can hit that little pull-up jumper off the
Very versatile.
dribble. And I think he's got a high sense of basketball IQ. He knows when I've got a guy guarding me that's 6'3", 6'4", I can elevate. He's 6'6", he can elevate so well.
it doesn't even matter if there's a hand in his
Right.
face.
But he's got a hurt
can-
groin.
He can hit that jumper, and I mean he was IU's spark in so many games during the non-conference portion.
Yep.
I think now coming off the injury, Achilles, ankle, whatever it was. Now I think because that was during that 3-game losing streak, he was still coming off that. I think now he's settled in his role, and now you give Tom the flexibility of I can go big with Elston and Watford, and still have Will come off the bench and be that role. Because I think that's where Will thrives, is off the bench. I know I'm kind of getting off subject, but Verdell, I think he's always been a scorer. Or at least he's always had to be a scorer.
Right, exactly.
So from that standpoint, he needs to start.
He was the assist leader for a long time.
Right.
in
I think
this
he needs to
season.
start he needs to be in that role. And I think the whole starting thing kind of gets overblown. It's who's going to be out
Way
there. Who's going to be out there.
It doesn't matter if you're going to
last
sub
five.
after 5.
Right. I mean, Tom subs so regularly. It's who's going to be out there in the last 5.
Yep.
And Sheehy's proven himself that he can't be out there.
Can't
and
believe Corbin.
so for me, that's been it. It's been the sophomores.
Did you guys watch any pro-am ball this summer up in Indy?
I watched a little bit, yeah.
Was it not like those guys just? It's like their nuts dropped.
Right.
Both of them. I mean, their swag just started oozing during that.
And I think it's part of it. It's like those guys' athleticism isn't at the NBA. I mean, Victor's at the.
But I think that's where they got the chance to measure up and
Right.
realize.
Exactly.
They got to see. We can play with some
Yeah.
pretty damn good players.
That's been.
And I think that's where it kind of matured into where when they got back on campus, I think Jordy or whoever that leader is grabbed him and said, "Did you see what you did up there? You got to do that here."
When you shook Born Ready.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I
I mean,
mean,
you can take a guy off the dribble and make
Right.
it look pretty bad. Like,
and I mean, yes, it is the pro-am, but those kids both know, they again, like I said, they come from winning programs, so they have been there before, and that's something I think that shouldn't be taken for granted. Is these guys have won, Jordy's won, and these guys have won, so they know it. Just can they come together and now you're starting to see. Because I don't think Victor and Will are your ideal two guard, I guess, if we're going to mold them into that. But they're guys that got to be on the court. I mean, when you have the athleticism that Victor has, he's got to be on the court. And Thomas said so many times how when he makes plays and he does this, that gets everybody, not only the 17,000 in Assembly Hall, but that gets the 12 players on that bench going.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it sounds cliche and stupid, like, he always says defense creates offense, this and that.
It's true.
But he's right.
Yeah.
When Victor makes
How-
the block, it's almost as loud as a Cody dunk.
How good were they
And-
the opening minutes of last
Right.
night's game?
And like Sheehy's block against Lewis Jackson on Saturday night.
I think the best play of his career, honestly.
Yeah.
I
The
would
shoe
agree.
bagging aside, I mean,
Right.
that was
yes,
maybe the biggest play of his career at
Abel's
IU.
three
Yep.
gets a lot of the pub and got Connor's sidebar and everything, but
Love me
that
some Remy.
block, I mean, if Lou Jack hits that layup,
Who knows?
Purdue's all the momentum.
Mackey's
I mean,
back
you were
in it,
there.
yeah.
Mackey's up on their feet, and who knows? Now we're back to can IU make a play in the half court in the last 2 minutes of the game? Now you're back to that.
No.
You don't want
But
to rely on
Sheehy,
that.
No, you don't.
Sheehy
Do
makes
not.
that play, and they just create energy. And I think that is one thing down the road that people are going to miss. It's so much of the 12 class and the 14 class, and Hartman and Davis aren't your Victor Will in terms of energy, and that's going to be missed.
Mhm.
I mean, their energy is going to be missed. So for me, I know I've rambled. For me, sophomore class.
Radio Bowen got it.
Can
Don't
we
worry,
just
Red
talk
Zone.
kind of something he was just kind of hitting on real quick? This team needs to run. Tom Green talks about
I
18
wanna
different,
run.
18 different wins, 18 different ways. No,
No.
he needs to run. They need to be the hurrying Hoosiers. This team, when they get out on the open
I wrote a
floor,
column like them.
yeah, and they can kind of they have so many options to distribute. They're really good in transition, and when they are getting transition buckets, this team is as good as it gets, and that's why they were able to beat Ohio State. That's why they were able to beat Kentucky. And when they got out on the open floor and they get some of these guys open, these guys have some crazy athleticism, and the things that they're able to do in the open floor is as impressive as it gets. And I know Crean even said before the Illinois game they didn't want to get into a half-court game. He's right. You shouldn't get into a half-court game with anybody.
Stagnant.
If you have some of the athletes that you do on this team, why bother? I mean, let some of the athleticism take over. Let Cody get open looks in transition. I don't understand why
It's unreal.
they would ever want to slow it down. There's a stat I was looking up today. I don't think IU has lost a game in which they have scored less than 73 points,
Mhm.
which in the Big Ten, that's
That's
saying
a
something.
lot.
That's a lot of points in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And, this team does need to win a game a specific way. Not necessarily shooting from beyond the arc like they were in the beginning of the season, but they're a team that needs to get out. They need to run. They need to get points in transition because that was the biggest thing when they went on the 3-game losing streak is they were not getting points. They were slowing it down too much. They were letting other defenses catch up and kind of, dare I say, get out coached. Kind of true. And when this team is kind of, improving and doing things on the fly, they're not bad, and they can really compete
They're
with
better
anybody in
than
the
not
country.
bad.
Yeah.
I wonder what the corollary to the 73 points would be to possessions per game.
Yeah.
that'd be
In those high tempo games, it seems like we excel
right.
when we get ground out into it.
Wisconsin is
Yeah,
not our style. Not
No.
our
They can't
style.
win like that.
no.
They can't. I mean, I know that game was a few possessions away. They can't win like that. I'm sorry.
I was even surprised last night how many points we left on the court in transition in the first half.
Right.
Yeah.
That was probably some of the most disorganized fast breaks. And that
I was
was the thing
saying after the game in the 3-man weave, IU made 5 less shots from the field and hit just as many threes. Both teams hit
Yeah.
7.
Right.
What was the difference?
Illinois, it was getting to the
It
line.
was attacking the
You know?
basket and getting to the line.
And that's part of running. When you
Mhm.
get out and Jordy, has done it his whole life. He wants to run and
You just want to play defense. We know
Credit,
that.
credit to him for being really the only point guard. Remy and Victor are not point guards. They are. I think Remy could be down the road.
Where's Verdell?
Shooting guards that
Right,
like to
but
dribble.
at least Verdell can handle it in the half court.
Right.
Right.
In
He
the
could do
sense
there
that-
against the pressure against like Blue Jack.
Iowa, he
Right.
had 9 assists or, he had the dump offs. He's handled Big Ten pressure before in the half court. I mean, Jordy's clearly your guy that you want handling the ball on the break. And so for me, it was, I think Cody got to the point where Myers Leonard is pissed off. And
I can't move.
And he's bitching about calls, this and that, and Cody sprint to the rim. And he's been taught his whole life to be the first big underneath the rim, and they will find you. And Jordan is the exact guy that you want finding you because he knows what he's doing out there. And for me, yeah, I mean, like Connor said, I think running is.
Well, speaking of that, what do you guys make of since Verdell's been out here and Vic, we've relied more on Vic as far as handling the ball. What do you make of the difference in this team from a, I guess maybe a style standpoint? What's different to you guys now in the last couple of games versus, the 7-game stretch prior where things weren't functioning very fluidly?
Avi, this is you.
Sorry.
How is this team? How is this team different without Verdell right now?
I'll agree with Tom in the sense that they've created more depth. In terms of Remy, it has gotten him more minutes. These guys are big Remy fans. I'm not as big as I think Avi is. Avi's a big Remy fan. I'm not as. I still worry about him. He kind of catches the ball and it goes up. He hasn't seen a shot that he doesn't like. Purdue paid off. Last night he was 3 in front of the bench. It's kind of like just tone it down a little bit, slow him down a little bit. I think down the road it could lead to something. But we watched Elston. He had a couple big games with Verdell out. You need to create depth because there's going to be a time down the road where Cody's going to get foul trouble. Injuries could happen here in the next couple of games where you are going to need that. And for me, Verdell, that is a huge debate, especially within the student body. He gets booed coming in.
Who's your ball handlers?
This and that. Verdell still, in my opinion, besides Wofford shot against Kentucky, hit the biggest shot of the season. Ohio State hitting that baseline jumper.
That's true.
If he misses that, Kraft comes down. Maybe he makes a play. Maybe Buford does what Buford did on Tuesday night against Purdue and hit every big shot on the stretch.
What was Buford thinking?
And
I still can't get over that.
And maybe IU loses that game, and then their mindset's not right, and they lose Thursday night to Michigan, I believe. That's who they have the next game. So that shot by Verdell, if I'm Tom Crean, I don't maybe want the ball in his hands, but when the shot clock winds down, where do you want it? I mean, Jordy, yes, handling it, but Verdell would be above Victor and Will for me.
I agree with that.
It's his ability to have the pull-up. It's his ability to have been there before. Yes, dribbles his head down, turns the ball over, et cetera, but...
Leads the team in turnovers.
But wins lost.
But
wins lost. Like you can't argue with the results sometimes.
But during his stretch, during those 3 losses, Sheehy was still nicked up. Sheehy was still not where he is.
Sheehy's the reason they lose those 3 games?
I'm not saying that, but when you were in 1-possession games like you were at Nebraska and in that stretch, little things like and it's not.
So you don't put your
Can't get a defensive stop.
Yep.
It shouldn't be a thing where Hall's made some turnovers at Nebraska.
Yeah.
Right. So that's having the other ball handler in Verdell out there would have helped.
So other than Verdell, so your ball handlers right now, the guys that you trust with the ball,
Just Jordy and Verdell.
I agree.
Just Jordy.
I agree.
I think Victor, what he did at Purdue was
That's
nice.
why. Yeah.
But
You can't rely on
it's
that.
kind of a fluke.
That's why next year is so big.
I think you can develop him down the road, and once Jordy, I know we're thinking way down the road here, but Yogi, once he gets here, you have no other point guard in that 13 class.
I think
Yogi will be the only point guard in that 12 class, and he'll be the only point guard on the roster. Jordy will be gone by then. Once after Yogi's first year, so Remy and Victor have one more year. Victor will be a senior. One of those guys is going to have to take a little pressure off Yogi. So I think that's where Tom is looking at a little bit down the road that these guys, he has to develop another point guard. But end of the game, I want the ball either in Jordy or Verdell's hands if I'm an IU fan.
Here's the thing about Verdell. Verdell, in the half-court game, you know what? He's not bad. He's not bad. End of the shot clock, he's one of the few guys in this team that can create a shot.
Sure, if you want.
Having said that, Verdell gets guys out of the flow of the offense. When he gets guys.
Hey,
Attention
Verdell, how are
pouring
you
animals,
doing?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
seriously. When
Can you do well in the half court?
Verdell was good in that Wisconsin game. If you look back at that, Wisconsin obviously a team that brings opposing offenses into the half court game, and he thrived in that role in the first half, and is very good at the end of the shot clock, at least getting a shot up or drawing the foul. On this team, Verdell doesn't fit. He's the odd man out. And I know everybody, people are going to boo him at times and say he takes too many shots and then he turns the ball over too much. First of all, you shouldn't boo Verdell Jones, all right?
You shouldn't boo anybody on your own freaking team.
You shouldn't boo anybody on your home team. And
Jesus Christ.
having seen what we've seen out of Verdell Jones, there are times where this team would have scored more than 30 points had it not been for Verdell Jones. So that's kind of beside the point.
I mean,
Verdell Jones doesn't really fit in this team, and he is still adjusting to his role now. And his role now is
Pritchard adjusted to his role well.
Pritchard has, he really has. But you know what?
Seriously.
You look
Yeah,
at what Verdell has done this year.
with force.
Sorry. Oh,
Like
God.
Miles Leonard and Cody running down the court.
Right, exactly.
Give me the elbow.
God.
But I mean, you look at what Verdell has done this year, and he's trying. You can tell he's trying to fit in this role, but it's awkward. The guy's been the main source of shots in every single game that he's played up until these 3 years at IU, and to go into this role as a senior and to be kind of
changed
diminished
so much.
so much.
He's expected to be a sharer.
Yeah, he's expected to dish, and he was leading the team in assists for a while.
He was.
And it's just, it's really, it's kind of an awkward stage for him to be at this point where he just doesn't really know what he is right now. And I would say for IU to benefit them, get the ball to him in a half-court game or at the end of the shot clock. Other than that, let Jordy run the offense. Let the offense run through Cody. Kind of work away from Verdell. Get
How
some of the
much
other
of his
bench in the
presence,
second
though,
half.
do you think leads us late in the shot clock?
That's a good point.
No, I agree. I think at times he's out pounding, and it's the head down, and he's
Yeah.
not finding Cody. And I think the big thing going forward is who is Tom going to put out there in the backcourt down the
Keep
stretch?
calling him Tom. I think that's great. Go ahead.
All right, Cream, whatever. Watford, Zeller,
CTC?
You're
Watford,
on a first
Zeller
name basis.
are going to be out there with the 4 and the 5.
Right.
Who is he going to put out there in the backcourt? Because he's trusted Roth late in games in terms of offense, defense, subs.
Daniel Moore.
Who does he put out? Out of Sheehy, Victor, Verdell, Jordy, who does he put? Who is the 3 he chooses out of those 4? I think that's a big thing going forward. And the one thing that I was, how much?
They got too many swingmen.
Connor had said this earlier. How much has Verdell's role changed? I mean, he came in as a mid 150 player. He wasn't expecting the team's leading scorer.
He got a Minnesota offer though. People forget that.
Right, but in the sense that
He wasn't just like compared to a lot of the guys on that team though.
He
He's
got
not a
him-
complete scrub.
he got an offer from them being the 7th or 8th man as a freshman. He got an
Yeah.
offer from IU saying, you're going to come in and be our 1
Yeah.
or 2. That is where his role is totally different. And then the next year, okay, you're still going to be the focal point because you've got to get Creek and Jordan and these guys acclimated to college basketball. And then the next year is like, oh, these guys are starting to be pretty good. Your role is going to slide back to where Minnesota offered you in the sense that just kind of be a role player. And now he's got to his senior year where you start 5 guys that can all be in double figures.
He's starting
We
because
don't-
he's a senior. Can we say that?
Why is he starting?
I would say he's starting because he's a senior. I would say he's starting because of all of what he's gone through in this
Who
program.
do you start? Sheehy and Victor with Jordan?
Yes.
That's
That's
your
who I
two?
would start.
See, I just think that Sheehy thrives in that role off the bench.
But more-
and I
okay,
think
more-
That's come on.
And again, it is like I've said, it's at the end of the game where we will see what truly happens.
Yeah, and that's all
And
that
I think
matters.
right, but at the same time, it is about getting off to good.
But it's
good
setting
starts
yourself
sometimes.
up for the end of the game, too. I mean, you can't go for 35 minutes and shit the bed and expect that whatever
And
you do
at
on the court.
Michigan, you're down 13-0 out of the gate.
Yeah,
I
you know,
understand.
and how, how we find ourselves in those positions that you have to rely on guys to come up in the clutch.
Right.
It's been interesting though because Verdell can still have games, like we've seen where he can come out and have 9 assists,
Yeah.
pocket full of turnovers, nothing crazy, and then other games he's just all over the place. I came to the
Minnesota.
conclusion, who is the most Verdell-like player in the Big Ten for you guys?
Ooh,
After going to
that's
Mackey,
tough.
I think Lou Jack. After sitting in the stands,
We saw Lou Jack low though. That might have been the
1 for
low of
10
Lou
from the
Jack's
field.
career.
He played better on Tuesday.
I'm
against
sorry, but
Ohio State.
Maybe Tim Hardaway.
this team is so much bigger than just for
Hardaway, at least
I
in
like
the first
that,
half.
yeah.
I mean, Hardaway in
Yeah.
the first
That
half
was
of games.
awful.
My roommate is a diehard Michigan fan, and watching him watch Hardaway in the
Your
first
roommate's
half
Stu Douglas.
is gruesome. No.
Why does Tim Hardaway
It's
shoot
gruesome.
threes? Can somebody clear that up for me? He is 6'6" and is one of the most athletic players in the
Tim
country.
Hardaway is so much
and he
potential.
shoots threes. Dude shoot like 25% from beyond the arc this season.
It's-
Well,
For
season
Beeline,
last
everybody
season-
has to be a shooter. I mean, that's just the way it works.
I guess maybe
You have to prove the cliche
I
truth.
don't get that.
You can maybe argue Brandon Paul when he's off,
Brandon Paul last night.
I like that.
but at the same point, it's
you
people,
mentioned DJ Berger too.
right. I mean, DJ Bird guns.
How about Ryan?
But at the same time,
Ryan's-
these guys have to almost. I mean, when I looked out there on the floor last night, I was saying to Connor, it's like, okay, Richardson can hit threes, and Leonard is great once you get the ball to him. Besides that, they have no one.
They don't have anybody that creates.
Bertrand, number 20 Henry last night had like 4 or 6 points, and that was like a career high in the Big Ten. Like it was.
Who is that guy? Like the big guy that they so.
Yeah, he had
Egg-woo.
5,000. Like
There was an
24
Illinois
yards.
fan behind me, and he's like, "Watch, if this guy makes a ball go through the basket, I'm gonna leave."
It's a miracle.
And like, sure enough, he hit like a free throw or something like
So I
that. And this guy was in total. I guess they found their Bawa.
I think part of it's roles too. It's like Verdell is, Brandon
That's-
Paul has to be, and Hardaway for the most part for Michigan, they don't have much depth. They don't have a Sheehy or anything like that. I mean, they have got their starting five, and Smotrich comes off the bench, and Bogert shoots and does whatever. But Verdell can be subbed out, and that's what Tom hasn't had in these past 4 years. Is now he can say, got a Roth, I've got a
He loves
Sheehy.
having depth, by the
Got a
way.
Remy now.
If
Got
there's
a Elston.
Right.
Got a
I mean,
Bridge.
he can,
He loves
and
his depth.
he has mentioned this in the past. He goes,
Yeah.
There's not a better thing as a coach than saying you can sit your right here on the bench. And at this time, I'm not putting in Evan White. I'm not putting in Finkelmeyer. I'm putting in a guy.
Finkelmeyer.
I'm putting in a guy that's on scholarship, and there's a reason that I brought him into this program.
Yep.
Yeah.
And not only is there a reason, but he's producing.
He's got 7 starters, Kevin. He's got 7
Do we,
starters.
can we not say, why haven't we added that yet? Is Remy not elevated the 8th starter yet? Are
I
we
mean,
not there with
It's not
Remy?
that point.
What do you
Because
see as
honestly,
Remy's role?
Look at the total minutes though. If you're going to call Elston the 7th starter, and I assume he would be based off time played,
Oh, he is. According to Creed.
let's look at his minutes compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
It's not.
Do you have 8 or 9 starters then? Because if he's a
I mean,
starter,
Then so is Roth, so is Remy.
exactly.
I think he's been falling in love, and at times he
What
can
is-
go 4
what is that
guards in
title
terms of
division?
Sheehy at the 4. I mean, when you're playing a team like Michigan or Purdue, in which we've seen how Christian's been guarded these past couple games. Novak from Michigan, 6'5" kid. DJ Bird, 6'5".
Smaller.
You're just taking my
Bastard.
post here.
Bertrand-
That's
no,
not
Pretty much, I was going to
but
say, didn't I just read this
No,
morning?
but I mean he's exactly right. And
You
Connor
posted
was saying
something?
that Watford couldn't score over Novak, over Bird, and I think at times Crean's been saying, okay, well then you're going to sit, and I'll put out 4 guards with Sheehy or whoever you want at the 4 around Cody, because Cody attracts so much that it's almost like having 2 bigs out there. So he attracts that double, and
He's gotta learn how to rebound.
Beeline mentioned it after the Michigan game. We weren't going to let Watford
2
do
double
what
doubles this year.
he did the first time. Watford had 25 points the first time, this and that. So I think it's just, again, it's depth. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but there's quality depth on this program.
For the first time.
And there's really not much quality depth around major Big Ten teams this year. Ohio State doesn't go very deep. At least Mata doesn't trust them going deep.
Mata's never had depth. He's
Right.
had crazy starting
Northwestern's
5
the
talent.
worst
guys,
of them all. Northwestern's got to be the worst of them all.
I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I would sit here and say there's not a team that utilizes their depth as much as IU. Quality depth.
I
as
will
much as
say-
IU in the Big Ten.
I will go.
Michigan State really doesn't go that deep either. I mean, it's kind of Appling, Wood, Nix, Payne, Green. It's like, they don't Dawson a little bit. I mean, they don't really. Izzo isn't comfortable with anybody else really. So I think it's IU has that the most quality depth of any team in the conference, and Tom realizes that and says we've got to expose
Scoring
them.
depth, at
Here's
least.
the thing. Is
Because I would argue Wisconsin is better defensive depth.
And I would argue defensive depth, we're shallow as shit.
Yes, I would agree with
well, that's because they have the second highest points per game, I think, of any
Tom
Big
keeps
Ten
on
team.
saying that Roth is a defender or has grown into.
He can at least stay sideways, and which is a step up. I mean,
Right.
honestly,
No, I
the fact that we're not playing defense from behind them,
Stan Martin.
it is an improvement.
I hate the fact that they so beat the drum of their defense, and they all talk about their defense, and it's like, dude, you're not a good defensive team. You're a good offensive.
Let me ask you this then: so in your deflections, do you think
There was a whole-
by focusing or emphasizing that particular element, does he encourage
Very
unsound defensive practices from his team by overplaying
It's
the
really
ball,
competitive in that locker room.
going
It
for
is.
those deflections,
It's really competitive
rather
in the
than
locker
staying
room.
fundamentally sound, keeping your your body.
They gamble a lot. They do.
Something we've seen from Victor when he struggled.
Oh,
he,
big
he
time.
I think he gets in that highlight mode a little bit where it's
Did you
He's
see
going for
Jordy
the kid.
slap, or who was it that slapped
It
the
was
floor?
Jordy.
There's Jordy slapping the floor.
But I think Victor
No, I loved it. Actually, if I could have
No,
tweeted faster on my
I
fucking
like
phone.
that.
No,
I
I
like
like it too. I like it too. But just the iron, it's like
That's-
it's like
But
the,
that's what
the
we
whitest
haven't
guy
s-
you know.
But that's what
slapping
we
the
haven't
floor.
seen in so
matter.
long. Is those
you have
guys
to do. You have to create energy.
but literally getting low to the court,
Yeah.
getting wide, and doing what most coaches in the state would say, that's sound defensive principle.
That's Duke 101. You should know that.
You slap the court and
But no, I agree.
you're locked in.
To get back to your point, I mean, it's like saying at times Victor I thought was gambling a little bit, and I even said to Connor last night, I think he's done a better job on Paul than Victor did.
Mhm.
And I just think at times Will kind of comes in, and maybe it is coming off the bench. Maybe he's seen, and Tom does a great job with assistant coaches bringing Will over to that first or second seat and sitting there saying, okay, this is Illinois' game plan after 2 or 3 minutes into the game. This is what we think.
He
Paul
won't
wants
talk
to
about
do.
because he's got blood. Then maybe again in the Big Ten tournament.
Right, but I mean, it's McLean and it's Buckley and it's Seltzer in his head saying, this is what Paul is doing. We want you to go in there and attack this way. And you put a fresh body in the game. And that's where it gets back to the sophomore class thing, is they're interchangeable almost. And to have both of them and not lose a beat when Will comes in, and maybe he is a less aggressive defender. He won't maybe rack up the steals and the highlights that Victor does. The other day, if Brandon Paul goes, what was he, 1 of 5 in the first half, 2 fouls?
1 of 5, 2 fouls, 2 points. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what his stat line reads at halftime, you're going to sit there and say, we're doing a pretty
Will
damn good
didn't
job.
look that injured on defense last night.
No, not at all.
I don't buy that. I don't buy the groin thing.
His defense looked pretty good actually. He was maybe busting around screens better than anybody else
Yeah.
on the floor.
I'd agree with that.
For him to, I still don't
And
buy
for
that.
how many screens
They were throwing at him.
they set, I mean, that is their all. I mean, it's 2 down screens for Richardson and Paul. We create something, and it's because at late in the second half, there was no Leonard. He didn't score after the 18-minute mark, I believe, of the game. So I think that's when it got to the point where, and Paul and Richardson are 2 guys that they want to put the ball up. So when you have 2 wings that can guard them, in Victor and Will, that's a great asset. But at the same time, that's where do you want those guys on offense? Late in the game, will we see, Verdell or Roth subbing for them? I think that going forward is how he utilizes those subs late in the game is going to be interesting.
For all the credit that Crean gets, I mean, I just kind of want to take this time to give Crean's assistants some love because they come up with so many of these game plans for, especially these past couple of road games here where, I think, was it Buckley that had no, it was McLean. McLean have the scouting report for that?
I thought McLean was Michigan because that was the one I missed.
McLean might have been Michigan, but Crean's
Buckley, yeah,
assistants
Purdue.
do a really good job, and they might not get any love from IU basketball fans, but they do a really good job. And
I have a
Buckley's-
Benny Seltzer actually big head poster to my wall.
these guys are good at what they do, and it's kind of overlooked a little bit. And they're kind of just looked as the guys that are the crazy guys beside Crean yelling on the sideline. But these guys, give them credit for doing what they do, putting up with what they put up with Crean, and for being good at their jobs.
Ooh.
Putting up, I should say the
Whoa.
craziness of Crean, the controlling nature of Crean.
Whoa.
We'll say that'll be my justification.
The manicness.
The
Let me
manicness.
let me go out.
The
Let me
manicness.
extend this branch a little further out there.
There we go. That's fine.
He's batshit crazy, and they deal with it on a daily basis, and they thrive. I just had this conversation today. I think we see 1, if not 2, of our assistants this year leave and get hired on as head coaches.
Buckley was
somewhere.
very close to go to Northern.
Buckley and,
Illinois last
and,
year.
and I think Seltzer as well this year. Maybe he's going to get the
Didn't
call
McLean
up.
take a step back?
Not only are they getting the attention because of their success, though, but this is the first year since they've been here where they can actually point to specific player development, specifics as far as this is the game plan that we implemented this game.
Exactly.
This is what we exploited. This
And
is how we
Buckley's been
won.
head coach in the past, so he's got that to go with.
Buckley will be a head coach again in college basketball. I have no doubt.
He's
about
got the hair for it.
And for Tom, really, it's not that big of a deal. Calvert, you just bump up.
And I don't know if you know this either. Benny's got a Harley.
Does he really?
Can
Benny
you explain
rides
to
a
me how
Harley.
a guy with a name like Benny Seltzer is not like a little Jewish guy? Like
Juvement.
Benny.
All right,
Oh,
he is a Harley riding
Benny's-
brother who will wear candy stripes to recruiting events.
You will.
My name
And
is
if that
Benny
doesn't
Seltzer.
says,
I
like-
really enjoy it.
Is the all-time assistant three-point leader in Washington State history.
How do
Is
you
that
know
true?
these things?
Washington
How?
State history.
Yeah.
Really?
All-time
Wow.
assistant.
How do you know the? Get a life, Bowen.
Definitely all-time assist. I'm almost positive all-time.
Go back to the villas.
Impressive.
You and Sage Steele.
By the way, who got to see Sage up close last night?
Still a woman.
She brought the husband in the media room.
Girl's got talent.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
Talent.
Girl has talent.
We'll call it
She was
talent.
back. I saw her pic today.
She's
She
40
was back
and
at
still
Sports
rocking
Center at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Of the villas.
She's a product of those.
I don't care if she's a product of the villas.
I
All
love
right.
it.
Let me appease you.
I love
She probably partied at Delta Guy. One time.
Oh God, I'm not.
Oh,
Moving.
no.
Can we get back to basketball?
And then met some guy from the DMV and was like, what the fuck am I doing here?
He was a nice guy.
I'm sure he was. So let's take it forward here.
Can we get off Verdell?
But you know, the thing about Verdell, you know, personal opinions aside,
So.
it's I'd say polarizing issue. Honestly, I think it'd be more aptly described as bipolarizing, because for everything that Verdell does, good or bad, there's whatever Verdell does, there's a counter argument that is just as strong. I mean,
It's worthless time. Just
He's-
there's other players on this team, people. If you lose the
but-
game, it's not because of Verdell. Like,
But he still plays a big role in the sense that. But I go back to his role. It's.
we're not gonna talk about Verdell.
I mean, we are, I guess. And it came in a starting of he is the number one option on this team. He's number one, two
Right.
option at times freshman year. And then same as sophomore year. And now he's to the role where he doesn't need to be that. But I think he still thinks he's that. And for a kid like that, I'm sure it's hard to grasp. I mean, it's hard to sit there and say, I am now the least fan favorite. Whereas freshman year, you know, when we beat Iowa and when all this happened, I was the guy, you know, I was
ego
loved.
thing.
Right, and I think that's hard for him to grasp that his role has changed that much to where unless he hits a game winner against Purdue on senior
Hey,
night,
assist winner.
he is still going to be, I mean,
That
it's
was
like,
this close.
I mean, it is still going to be, he is the most hated player right now in IU, and personally, I don't agree with it. I mean, it's just the fact that
It's a matter of expectations. The expectations for Tom Pritchard got
I think
lower.
expectations are too high for Verdell. You have
I
to go
agree.
back to what he
Right,
came
that's what I'm
into
saying.
this
Is that
program.
Tom Pritchard, as a parallel, his expectations were lowered exponentially when Cody Zeller stepped in, and now he's a fan favorite because they're like.
But it helps that Pritchard has Cody. Verdell doesn't have.
That's what I'm saying.
There's
It's
no-
a parallel.
Right, there's no backcourt equivalent to Cody. You know,
We
if
can't
there was
waste this
Eric,
entire hour talking about Verdell. Yeah, okay.
if there was Eric Gordon and Verdell was just taking Pritchard's role, it'd be fine and well, and Verdell would play 8 minutes a game and do his thing. But the fact that he has to play ample minutes, he still is a factor on this team, and I think that's why going forward, it's just like his role was never meant to be. He was never recruited by Minnesota, and Arizona, I think, was also involved in
Is he a
his
three?
recruitment. Yeah, I think of the
Luke Olson
He
gave
got
Verdell
some
Jones a
looks.
call?
Yeah, I mean,
Some looks.
top
I
150
didn't know
player.
that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just Minnesota.
Alright.
Until he
And
said
his
that.
role there was not to be the star. You know, his role was
Alright.
to be a role player.
What was your next question? It's
When do you
45
think we
minutes
get him
over.
back? How long do you think Verdell's
next
out?
game?
You think he comes
Yeah.
back next game?
Next 2 games. I mean, if you can't beat Northwestern without him, then
I think he just.
that's a problem.
I think Creed's just looking at his injuries. And
I mean, he
supposed
was
to
wearing, it looked like a little black little
Look
thing
at that
on
last
the
brace
other
on.
night. Did he have it last? Okay, I mean, the fact that he's warming up,
The injuries on
I
this
think
team, I've stopped trying to even make sense of.
some injuries, but at the same time, injuries have been a good thing this year. I mean, there's no Christian out for X amount of games. There's no Creek out for
Well,
It's Cody.
right.
I mean, Cody's.
I mean,
Oh, he had the,
Last
I
night-
thought he had the
bicep
tattoo
issue
game
was-
done, remember?
Covering his tattoo. That's
I
it.
said to Connor last night, I go, what if Cody gets hurt here when he went back in the
Yeah.
game with 20,
Yeah.
20 seconds to go? I mean,
Yeah, why did
Because-
the human victory cigar not get subbed in?
But you know why? Because they kept fouling.
right.
If Illinois is
And
going to keep
Creed
fouling
went
and
straight-
extending the game,
Creed
I'm
went
going to
straight
keep
Cody.
jamming this up your ass.
Which I agree.
And I fully support that.
Right.
I
That's
had this
interesting.
conversation last night with an old lady beside me. She
Was
said,
it Martha?
No, it wasn't Martha. I got the book club that sits behind me.
Oh,
Do you?
They
That's gotta
literally
be
bring
great talk.
books
What,
and
what,
knitting
they
stuff.
reading season on the brink for the 6th time?
No, but
No.
what they do know is they know that A, we don't fucking screen enough. B, we don't have we don't have the ability to get the ball into the post regular enough. And they know that if you're going to keep fouling us when they're ready to go home and go to bed because they're already 2 hours past bedtime,
It's 10:30.
fuck you, the starters should still be in. And they literally clapped when Cody came in.
I said to Connor,
That's all right,
Could you imagine if Weber's in that huddle saying,
Weber's got a year
"My
left.
eyes are here, guys. If any of you do anything to Cody right now, pull a little John Chaney." I mean it. I
Do
mean,
you think they got the marching orders before the game? And to go at him?
I don't think.
I
I mean,
mean,
Leonard,
they got green lights.
Leonard obviously
Leonard
was
is.
calmed down, saying, we need you for 40 minutes tonight, and they couldn't get him for 40.
Yeah.
But some of those guys at the end of the bench, they had one kid get in for 30 seconds, commit 2 fouls. I mean,
That's Pritchard right there.
that's worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I will not
That'll make Tom
stand
blush.
for bad talking.
Pritchard, that is.
All right,
But yeah.
let's get
Go
back
ahead.
there.
Where do you see this thing going, man?
This year.
Where are we going?
This year.
Yep. Short-term tournament.
Good.
How's this thing wrap up?
So, are we talking Big Ten or NCAA?
I'm talking from guys that sit in the sweet seats every game that have access.
I'm pretty squished.
Not at away games.
I got Bob Hamill on my right. I got Kevin Bowen on my left. I don't have too much room here. I got the width of my computer. That's all I got.
I'm
just
at
to be
half
fair.
court. I'm sitting pretty.
I mean, you're better than
All right,
GA
listen,
for every
this
game.
is-
You don't
this
have
is
to
what-
wait in
better than
30-degree
the
weather.
All right, this is what I'm gonna say.
Better than Crean's
So
Club.
you're asking me to give straight up a prediction for NCAA tournament results, right?
Just where's the season head? I mean, both in the conclusion of the
To
conference.
happiness. I mean, it's. I think they
Define
make,
happiness.
People want a
Because
definitive.
I'm not
line
gonna lie, I'm gonna be pretty shitty with the first round loss. In the
I
tournament.
think they make the second round and they lose in the second round.
What's their seed?
What's their seed? 4. I think they lose in the second round as a 4 seed.
How do we finish the
So
season
you-
out?
Huh?
How do we finish the
The non
the regular season? I should say.
If they're a 4
Regular
seed, they can't be losing them anymore.
Last 6 games, Big Ten tournament.
They got to be going at least 5-1 if they're a 4 seed. Losing only Michigan State.
I think they. So, Purdue at home. I think they beat Purdue at home, definitely. If you can beat Purdue on the road, you can beat Purdue at home. And then you're looking at Minnesota and Iowa on the road. Do you think they split?
I don't think they win at the barn. Call me crazy.
It's the
I think
fucking
it's-
court.
I think
And
there's a certain
BTN
thing
did a
about
whole
that
thing on it
place.
last
Yeah.
night.
Wisconsin
But
died for this.
it has been in our head as long as I've been alive.
Yep.
And-
And there's a certain thing about that place where they just can't win there.
Why? Why elevate your court? Are the-
Vanderbilt.
Are the sight lines really that different if you take that 2 foot out of it and not threaten to make
It is that-
paraplegics out of
Actually,
the
can I
Cancels
take
elevated a
back
little
the
bit.
fact that they're a 4 seed? I suck at making predictions.
I'll
We know
say,
this.
I'll say,
How do we finish the season?
I think they lose in the second round.
I'll say
See,
they
don't
lose,
fuck around. I don't care.
Michigan State at home. They only lost the rest of the
Definitely.
way. I think they're going to win at the barn.
You think they're gonna win straight out at Iowa, at Minnesota?
Yeah, I think Iowa's. Yeah, I think they will. So that's
We
a
gave
5.
up 89 at home.
Yeah, but
89.
they let that little Oglesby kid come in there about 7 threes. I'll say 5, and I'll say the inter-tournament committee will give them the benefit of the doubt, and they'll send them close. Louisville, Columbus, which will be a lot bigger advantage than
Nashville.
That a lot bigger
Seattle.
advantage than people take it for granted, and IU will get to the Sweet 16. But my question for you is, you're gonna be pissed off with the first round loss. Would you have said that in October?
Touche.
No, I would not have, but I'll say this much. I have a real issue with people who try to characterize the early season, the non-conference success, as we're overachieving.
Okay.
No, we're not overachieving. We actually achieved. We just achieved. We put together, and they weren't even perfect games. Crean just said that. Kentucky was not a perfect game. Ohio State was not a perfect game.
But
But
things also,
despite our flaws, we achieved at that level. We've seen where the ceiling for this team is, and I agree with Crean that
Where
we've
is
gotten better since then.
you say
With the best in the country.
You say the second weekend of the tournament. I mean, they should be in Sweet 16.
If you look at what we have achieved, if you look at how this team has played, at the way they've cohesed in big moments, and granted all those big moments have come at home for the most part, although I do think second half Purdue was monumental.
Oh,
No different, I thought,
NC State.
I was just going to say that. No different than I thought.
That gets over.
A lot of the
Well,
seniors
no
talked about
different than I
NC
thought.
State game being the
You take
defining
it
moment.
to the very beginning. first thing that none of us got to watch was Indiana State. And I don't know what, we all heard. I forget who he gave it to, Goodman or one of the national
Goodman,
analysts.
yeah.
2-point win, Cody.
Goodman still hates him. It's alright.
30 points.
That's weird.
I heard we blew their fucking doors out. And then I heard we did a bunch of situational stuff. If you spend enough time on Kirkwood, you might happen to have a player talking to somebody right behind you.
Right.
Blew their fucking doors out. I heard that and thought, wait a minute. I ran home, looked at it. They returned 4 out of 5 starters from a tournament team.
Who gave Syracuse a lot to handle that first round of the
Yep.
tournament.
And this team just went out there and blew their fucking doors off. I was pissed as shit at Crean that he denied us the opportunity to watch that game. I understand why he wanted to do the closed exhibition, or the scrimmage, I guess, rather than an exhibition. But looking at that, going, wait a minute, we need to reshift our paradigm here. If this team can come out there and take Indiana State by 30, in a game that last year we maybe lose at home if we played them in the
Because they
regular
were supposed to
season.
be a bubble. I mean, they're supposed to be in it. Missouri
Yeah,
Valley.
yeah. That made me kind of rethink it. And then the more you watch, I'm going to align myself maybe with Dokic's school of thought going,
20.
That's not an upset.
we're really, really
You
efficient.
think 23 though, like Dockets though?
Yeah.
Really?
Look at the way we ran it. I'm going to see our defense scared me throughout. We just allow too many points per possession. We just do. We have our perimeter defense is atrocious. I've likened it to France. I mean, and I think that if we could figure out help side defense for Cody, we
Grant
can
would do
shore up the perimeter so much more. The analogy there is if you look at the 0-2 championship run that we made, when Newton and Leach figured out how to help side defend each other, because neither one of them was a stellar lockdown post defender, but when they realized that if you can hold your position just long enough and buy your help side enough time to come over the top, you're okay. Just don't give up the easy spin. Provide some resistance, but enough that if we can figure out, and more than anything, if Watford can figure out how to help Cody, and vice versa, we would shore up a lot of those open threes that we're giving up right now. I think on defense, that's one of the critical things. Well, that and the point of attack. I mean, if Jordy can just get a step and a half faster laterally.
It's a big if.
That happens so often in the middle of the season too.
What do you think down the stretch?
Like I said, I think they lose at the barn.
Mhm.
I think they lose at home against Michigan State. I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear
That's
that.
gonna put a lot of pressure on that Purdue game.
Single digit.
I don't think so. I still think they win
Just
against
for a lot
Purdue.
of
Purdue was
yeah.
real down. I mean,
I think they
That
go,
game for Purdue is going to be a must win. I mean, no matter where they are.
I'll go semifinals of the Big Ten tournament. I'll go Sweet 16. 5 seed, they enter the tournament. They go to the Sweet 16. They win that game, that 5-4 game that they're not supposed to win necessarily. They win that game. They lose to a 1 seed.
depends
I
where they
mean-
are.
Would that be a Successful
You
season
have
in
to
your
look at that as a successful season.
for sure?
And I was kind of looking at
you look
the
at it
ones-
as a successful
You know-
season after they beat fucking Kentucky.
Let me
Yeah.
be the cantankerous bastard and say it depends on how we lose. If we come out like we did against Ohio State at Ohio State,
Is that the problem? Isn't it better?
no, I don't know what it's doing. It's fucking up. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure.